Today my guest is Cameron Skinner. Cameron, how are you?
Good, Dave. Great to be here.
Thanks for coming. Now, what's your job?
So I am what they call a product unit manager at Microsoft. I'm on the Visual Studio team. And specifically, I run the group, the product group, that builds all the visualization and modeling tools that you see in Visual Studio 2010 Ultimate.
Okay. And this week, you're kind of away from your job. You're touring around the Midwest, talking to people.
True enough.
About that.
True enough. Yeah. So we've just launched the product April 12th. I am on
2010 Visual Studio 2010.
Yeah, Visual Studio 2010. We just shipped, and what I am doing is I'm on what they call a launch tour, and I'm basically going through the heartland, visiting customers, talking at user groups, basically just getting the word out, talking with people, and having a good time so far. So
Yeah, you know what? I've seen your talk twice already. This is just the first day of it. I've seen your talk more than I've seen Avatar. So that gives you an indication. And my impression is the audiences are really responsive. People are excited about this product. They're excited about the features you're showing them.
yeah.
And you're focused, at least today, I'm not sure, is your group focused primarily on the architecture tools of Visual Studio?
Yes, that's right. So in Visual Studio 2010, there's a new top-level menu item called Architecture. You pull that thing down, and you'll see a bunch of new capabilities right out of the box. You essentially think of all the functionality that you see under that menu item is what I was responsible for. My team was responsible for building that.
Okay, and that used to be a separate SKU.
Yeah, absolutely.
It used to be the Architect Edition
That's
of
right.
Visual Studio Team System. That's gone.
That's gone. Yep, we've
where is that now?
have a completely new SKU lineup. So we basically have what used to be Suite is now Visual Studio Ultimate, Visual Studio 2010 Ultimate. Then the next SKU down is Premium. Under that is Professional.
Okay, and give me the Architect menu appears in which SKU?
Architect menu appears in the Ultimate SKU.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So what does it do? What are you trying to empower users to do with that menu?
Yeah. We're basically really trying to give you a number of things. We're trying to give you leverage you can pull to understand your existing assets, you understand your existing system. So the code in your existing projects, how do you get that under control? How do we, visualization techniques can we use to emphasize the dependencies between all the assemblies in your solution, what have you. Really understanding that existing system, with the idea being that you can move that thing forward and continue to experience the return on the investment that you've already poured into that existing base, leverage it, move it forward, and bring better design to that existing base. That's one piece.
Okay, let me start right there. So that's an interesting thing. You say code, but architects, they tend not to touch code.
Yeah.
So this tool is not just for architects, is it?
No, that's right. That's right. This tool is a lot of developer functionality. Okay. So devs in the trenches should be able to reach for this product and actually get their job done better and faster, as well as architects. But I would say that this is actually more for the solution architect, an architect that's actually closer to the implementation, closer to the metal.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So how do you do that? How does your product help an architect understand code better?
Okay, couple ways. So we've got a number of these assets that allow you to visualize your code. So we've got these new DGML diagrams, directed graph markup language diagrams.
Is that a language, markup language that existed already, or did Microsoft invent that?
Nope, we invented that in the 2010 timeframe.
Okay.
Yep, brand new stuff. It's an XML markup,
okay.
Designed to actually visualize any kind of data source. But in 2010, you'll see out of the box we can visualize your source and your assembly dependencies. Okay, that's one piece. The other piece is allow an architect or a developer to actually describe the architecture in a kind of blocks and arrows kind of way. We call this the layer diagram. So literally think of it as, hey, in the most basic sense, I've got my UI layer, my business layer, my data layer. And ideally the dependency should be going down. I shouldn't have a dependency from data to UI, that kind of thing. And then give you the ability to map your source, map your project onto those layers, and then we can validate whether or not the dependencies are actually flowing the way you had anticipated or not.
Okay.
And then if not, do something about it, right? And you can actually incorporate that into your build process.
So that's a tool that after an application's already been built, you might want to use to validate existing code.
Yeah, that's right.
So I've been in that situation before where somebody said, here's the code, review it and tell me if it's a good architecture.
Yep,
which
that's
is
right.
a pretty broad statement.
Yes,
and this
absolutely.
is one way of doing it. An example might be the UI is calling directly to the data layer.
Yeah.
something like that,
Yeah.
or the data layer is calling back into the business layer.
That's right. And it's also a tool that basically gives you some visibility into what it would mean to bring better design to your existing architecture. You know,
Okay.
you could basically say, I want my architecture to look a certain way. Now, how far away am I? You know, so you could actually, you could draw the 2B architecture and map your current assets, current project system, what have you, onto that, and then validate. And we'll give you a list of all the validations that you would need to correct in order to get to that new vision of your architecture, so to speak.
Okay. And you said that's you can incorporate that into your build process?
Yeah.
Is that something that's out of the box, that there are hooks into MS Build
Yes.
into this?
Yes, that's right. So all the analysis features that you see in 2010 are exposed via custom MS Build tasks. So if your build process is MS Build aware, or you're using MS Build to do your builds, you can leverage this feature set right out of the box. Now we focus on the team build integration with Team Foundation Server, so that you can incorporate layer validation into your nightly builds, your continuous builds, gated check-ins, what have you.
Okay. Any other tools? Some other tools that you've created to help. Let's stick with the understanding the code. There's some other tools out there I know.
Sure. So if we drill deeper into the understanding the code, kind of what some of those tools are. So I talked a little bit about the DGML graphs. You also have the ability to look at a piece of code and right-click on a method and say, hey, I want to show a sequence diagram, a UML sequence diagram, to show me the call sequence from this method on. We can automatically generate that based on your code. So that's one piece. Another piece is we give you a new tool window in Visual Studio called the Architecture Explorer. And that is basically, it's a cascading browser that allows you to explore your solution and ask various questions and get the answers to those questions in a way that then you can then visualize those results.
Questions like?
Like for instance, I've got a number of interfaces. What classes are implementing those interfaces? A real quick and easy way of getting at that kind of information.
Sure. Okay, so it's a way of visualizing your code beyond just looking at the code itself.
That's right.
Maybe a simpler way.
Yeah, and you can also look at dependencies even at the like project dependencies. Understand what projects are dependent on other projects. What assemblies are being generated out of existing projects. So you can take the Architecture Explorer and really analyze the logical types in your solution. But you can also say, I'm interested in understanding the physical, kind of like I've got a solution. It has projects. Those projects have files associated with them, and so on.
Sure. So this is something that really appealed to me, because another thing that I've been asked to do, move onto a project, existing code base. Often the first thing I'll do is I'll start mapping out things like sequence diagrams. I want to understand what this code does, where it goes, and what methods call what methods, what classes call what other methods. That can take days. It can take weeks if you really want to do it
Yeah.
a thorough job.
Yeah.
You're saying that with the push of a button we can do that.
Yeah, you can just generate those sequence diagrams, and you can really control how much information is being shown on that sequence diagram. So I can say, hey, starting from this method, I only want to go 3 calls deep,
Right.
or increase it, which increases the amount of information on the diagram. We want to, this concept of managing complexity. We don't want to throw too much information at you, because then the information itself becomes complex and you're not able to reason over it.
Right.
So we've really tried to keep that under control.
Okay. So you mentioned understanding code. What are some of the other goals of this product?
Yeah, so once you understand your code, we want to give you some levers to pull that allow you to maintain the control or maintain that understanding, share that understanding, and really bring the entire team into that. So we have the layer diagram, which I mentioned, but we also have deep integrations with the TFS work item system, which a work item in Team Foundation Server is everything from a bug to a requirement, for instance. In 2010, a work item is also a test case. That's new in 2010. And so we want to be able to link those work items to like the layer diagram elements, et cetera, as well as to the UML diagrams that is also new in the product.
Okay. Now we're using these work items on the work item feature of TFS on our project. What's the advantage of having the UML
how the your shop is kind of situated.
Okay.
Some folks, hey, they just want to get in there and write code, right? So we've got the code understanding features in there. But some folks actually want to design, do more conceptual, logical design, use UML to do that. That's great for doing that.
Okay.
And really lean on that standard notation, because they could be dealing with a third-party vendor, maybe they're using some offshore work, whatever, right?
Oh, okay, all right.
And so at that point, you can associate those diagrams with work items. So you can actually do kind of work breakdown from those diagrams. Turn a use case diagram, for instance, into a work, a user story or a requirement, which can then link to tasks, which can, breaks down into change sets, et cetera.
That's a great example. Okay, so I'm trying to look back to experience that I had, and many times we've had work items that had Word documents attached.
Yeah.
And those Word documents were in fact use cases.
Yep.
So now you're saying that this is all built, basically, we don't need to create Word documents if we're using the tool. I mean, we can if we want to.
You can if you want to,
But
yeah.
some of these things will be created semi-automatically for
Yeah,
us.
that's right.
All right.
We're really trying to control that complexity and understand when someone needs to make a change, requirements, users are constantly changing those requirements. What's the impact of that? What does that look like? Once you see the traceability through the system, you can get a better gauge of what that could potentially mean to you.
Okay, great. Other goals?
Well, I think that the one of the main goals of the product is also to understand. I talked a little bit about UML, but the understand the problem domain itself. So, it's one thing to make sure you've got a good project, a quality project. You're testing it. You're doing all the right things. But if you fundamentally missed what the customer is asking for, it's a failure. No matter how of high quality it is, you still miss the mark.
Agreed.
Right? So that understanding the domain and making sure you're building the right product from the beginning is kind of what we're trying to get done too. So you can think of this in total. You can think of the project as, give me some tools that can give me benefits bottom up, code up, top down, so understand that domain, use those UML graphs to really think logically, which pushes down to implementation. And then in the middle there, we can talk about, the layer diagram, which is maintain the control between the two. I can logically define an architecture based on the layer diagram, and then I can make that part of my build process to make sure it stays clean, or I can maintain visibility as I start to clean it up, that kind of thing.
Okay, so it's the UML diagrams that are helping you to understand your domain.
Yeah, that's
Okay.
right.
All right. What are some of the UML diagrams that are
Yeah.
available in the product?
Yeah, so out of the box in 2010, we ship 5 UML diagrams. The UML class, use case, activity, sequence, and component diagram. It's not all of the UML diagrams. It turns out, though, that those 5 UML diagrams cover 90% of the scenarios out there that people need UML for.
Sure. Okay. And then I noticed in your talk today, a lot of people were asking, does your product do this? Does the product do that? And in a few cases, your answer was, it doesn't do it now, but you've got this feature pack coming up in, what, a couple of months?
Yeah, a couple months.
And I had never heard that term before, feature pack. What is that?
So the feature pack is a new concept that I think you're going to see a lot more coming out of Visual Studio. And it's basically, we have experienced great success with Power Tools. And Power Tools is a great way of the product groups to get features out there that don't touch existing bits, but aren't necessarily at product quality. But the perfect thing about them is they're designed to fill a gap in the product, or test drive a current thinking of where we potentially could go. A feature pack is like Power Tools ++. Okay? A feature pack is closer to product quality. There's an implicit kind of promise around a feature pack that says everything that you see in a feature pack is actually going to roll into the next major version of Visual Studio. It's also only for current MSDN subscribers, so it's not just free like a Power Tool.
I see.
If you're an MSDN subscriber, you get it for free. It's fully supported, so some of our Power Tools are supported, some aren't. We don't have a real, the best thing we say about Power Tools is that they're supported on the forums.
Right.
Well, in a feature pack, they're actually supported. You call CSS, you call our customer support lines, they'll actually know what you're talking about with the feature packs, that kind of thing.
So what's some of the features of Visual Studio you've rolled into this feature pack that's coming up?
Yeah, so a couple things there, like code generation from UML diagrams, T4 based code generation off the UML class diagrams. The ability to reverse engineer from the Architecture Explorer directly into a UML class designer, which populates that model.
Architecture Explorer, what is that?
Yeah, that was that cascading browser I mentioned a little earlier that allows you to drag classes, et cetera, onto the class diagram.
Okay, all right.
Give you Xmi Import. So Xmi is an OMG standard. It's a metadata interchange format. It's a standard format. We're supporting that in the feature pack, which will allow you to import UML metadata from other UML tools, like Sparks or Rational or whatever.
Okay.
Also, we've exposed a lot of new layer diagram extensibility APIs so that you can write custom validation to participate in those team build layer validation scenarios that I was talking about. Gives you a lot of real powerful APIs to get in there and participate in that process. We also have the ability to do two other things. So the code up right now, we have great support for managed languages, but we don't in Visual Studio 2010 have support for native, so C++. In this feature pack, we'll have the beginnings of that. So you'll be able to point us at a Visual C++ solution, and we'll visualize the inner binary dependencies on that solution. The other thing that's in the feature pack is the ability to visualize web pages. So dependencies between your web pages, be it an ASP.NET MVC app or a web app or a web application. Okay, and then coordinate the web website web pages and understand the dependencies there, but also how it relates to the back-end business logic, wherever that may be. And so we're kind of connecting the two dots there. And I'm sure I'm forgetting something in the feature pack, but that gives you a good idea.
What's the time frame that'll be released?
So within the next 2 months, I think, is when we're shooting for it. May, June-ish timeframe.
Okay, so with Visual Studio 2010, which has only been out, 2 weeks, 3 weeks?
Yeah, April 12th.
April 12th, and today we're recording this on April 25th, I think?
Is that right?
Something like that.
Yeah, 26th.
26th, okay.
Yeah.
So it's brand spanking new. The release version is you've got a feature pack coming out to maybe fill in some of the gaps that didn't make that release. But you also talked about there's for things that are still gaps, there's an extensibility model for this. Is that part of your team's responsibility as well?
Yeah. So our team has provided an extensibility model around all the diagrams, but we're also leveraging a lot of the new extensibility capabilities that's in Visual Studio itself. Mm-hmm. So we're making heavy use of MEF, which is the Managed Extensibility Framework.
I'm a MEF fan myself, or a MEF addict, as I might say.
Yes, exactly. You do. You start to use it, and you just can't get enough of it. We're pouring that kind of functionality into the product set. And we're leveraging that in a big way, as our customers can also take advantage of that to add, your own kind of custom extensibility to the diagrams and what have you.
Okay. All right, great. Anything else you can tell us?
No, just download the trial version of Ultimate, take it for a test drive. I'm always open to feedback, good, bad, and the ugly. I'd love to hear it.
Okay. And do you have a online presence you want to?
Well, so my blog is at blogs.msdn.com, whack Cameron S. And I think I'm doing the Twitter thing, but I don't remember what my handle is there. So I got to figure that out. I'm not big on the Twitter thing.
Okay.
But my blog posts, I'm big on the blogs.
Okay.
So that would be great.
Great. Well, thanks very much. I really appreciate your time. I enjoyed the talk.
Absolutely.
Twice.
My pleasure.
And enjoy the rest of the tour.
Great. Thanks, Dave. Technology and Friends. Is that it?
That's it.